Also, remind me to talk about the continued violence from boys and other people.
Oh my God,
as I was
yes.
a kid. Because they were all scared. They were always so scared because we were always like getting threatened to be beat up.
This is the Abby Normal Podcast, here to tell you that you're weird and that's normal. What's up, weirdos? We're back with the queen of cringe herself, Dawn, who we met on episode 98 when she busted out her big box of middle school notes. You may remember this story she shared from the diary.
Someone finger banged me as I swam by, and I blamed it on Mike E. Boy, was he mad. I guess I was wrong. Ever since I got boobs and wore a bra, it was just the constant snapping of my bra, and boys would corner me after school when I was trying to leave in a corner and try to feel my boobs and stuff, so I think I was so used to being manhandled that like it didn't really faze me that much.
Ooh, boy. In her last episode, we talked about the things that Dawn was learning about her body, what it got her, the good stuff and the bad. The bad stuff Dawn learned how to deal with a whole bunch of different strategies she used from middle school until today.
When I was a kid, I was so like, Jesus says to turn the other cheek, that you could do something cruel to me on the playground and then come inside and sit next to me and ask me for a pencil, and I would happily loan you my pencil, and a bunch of things happened in junior high where I saw the light. And then I moved into this thing in 8th grade where I was like, I don't give a crap about any of y'all's.
So we're going to hear about some of those learning moments that shaped her. Yes, the feeling of not being at home in her body, but also how she approaches uncomfortable situations head on and with humor. In the beginning was Dawn, and Dawn had a propensity for hurting herself all the time.
This is awesome. List of things I have injured myself with. I mentioned to you the violence and a lot of pain. So I was constantly hurting myself, so much so that I had to carry a permission slip with me everywhere I went, because one time I broke an arm and my parents had gone shopping after church, and like they couldn't do anything until my parents. So it was like 6 hours of like me screaming in pain with this crushed arm. So one time for Tracy's birthday, because for some reason, every time I would do something stupid and hurt myself, the first thing which she would do is laugh hysterically. And then she'd be like, "Are you okay?" That's my judge for like if I can be friends with someone. If somebody is one of those people that when you fall, they like get mad, they're like angry at you for, I don't know, the incompetence or embarrassing them or something. We're not gonna work out.
Absolutely not.
In fact, that just made me think of one night I was out with my friend Eric, and we were drinking a little bit, and I used to wear these giant Kiss boots, which sometimes I would trip. And he was like, "Let's just run in this bar right before the Bowie movie and grab a drink." And I like tripped, and I like went flying into the bar and like face planted in the middle of the bar, and everyone was trying so hard not to laugh. Right. And I was like, "You can laugh.
You should definitely laugh.
It's hilarious." So one time she was feeling really sad, so I got a calendar and I wrote one of my accidents on every single day of the calendar, so every day she could like laugh about an accident.
There were enough injuries to fill a whole calendar. But she also experienced violence perpetuated by others, and that started early.
But yeah, the violence thing started like I was, I think because I was always kind of saucy and sassy, and I just didn't ever really care, even when I was a kid, what people thought. I pushed boys' buttons,
right?
I suppose. So I don't remember what led up to it. I just remember hitting the ground. But in kindergarten, this little boy pushed me down on the playground so hard that I broke my collarbone.
Oh!
And then in 1st grade, I got shot with a BB gun by my neighbor, very painfully so, and still had a crush on him, and broke my wrist trying to flirt with him, doing this stunt on a tricycle. And then the next year, I was at my grandma's house, And I had a cousin that was my age that was there. Well, he was older than me. That was playing with me and my sister. I didn't really know him. And I said something while we were playing basketball that pissed him off. And he full on punched me in the nose as hard as he could. And like blood was shooting everywhere. And then it was like a big thing. Like, your kid hit my kid. And it just kind of went on like that. Like, I was always getting like harassed or like shoved all the way in high school. Like, like the drama continued. So I don't think it was that weird to me when I ended up with someone who was like physically psycho with me sometimes, because I was just kind of like trained in that regard.
Right. Dawn had a boyfriend later in life who was, as she said, physically psycho with her. That's basically all she's going to say on that. But her point stands. All these little episodes culminate in a full training package, how we can expect boys to react to and treat us. In 3rd grade, I was working on a project with a classmate, and I said something that pissed him off. He stabbed me in the arm with a pencil. I still have a scar. So, boys, be popping off. Okay, we're leaving the kiddie pool and heading into middle school. And Dawn's diary mentions a creepy teacher, which I'm going to include because this too is training. It's normalized violence.
Talking about my pervert teacher, he was a super pervert. He would spank girls on the ass and try to look down your shirt every time he walked to your desk. Like, and we would keep complaining, and they were like, yeah, people complain about what a pervert he is every year. He would chase girls around trying to grab them as a joking, dirty old man on purpose. And they were like, well, he's got a lot of tenure and he's gonna retire in a few years. So there's nothing
What did
we
you
can
write
do.
about him?
Oh, just that he was such a jerk.
Ugh.
And he's such a creep.
So by 8th grade, Dawn had learned some lessons, and she was ready to stand up for herself. But how exactly do you do that?
I was never physical, and I would never have been like outwardly mean to anyone. I just stopped taking people's crap. I would like went the complete opposite of the Jesus thing and was just like, what? You know? And then by high school, I found a nice, even space where I'm just like, I'm doing my own thing. I can't waste my energy on what the rest of the world thinks, you know?
Right.
And then I was in my happy zone, but
yeah,
I was kind of a B in 8th grade.
Yeah. That's finding yourself, though.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You had to go through like the extremes to like find what's your happy middle ground.
Right. And I still feel like I'm learning that lesson as far as like, I mean, you're calling it the Jesus thing, and I do agree with that. The like turn the other cheek kind of thing. But I also think it has to do with being women. Like, we're taught to accommodate other people's needs and be aware of their needs and all that, right? Yep. So there's that. And then I'm still trying to figure out like what pieces of that do I want for myself to still have, and where do I have to defend myself and other people and not be a doormat, you know?
Yeah. No, I know. I was just saying this to Liz the other night that I read this article, or actually I watched a little clip on CNN of a high school girl talking about her experience of finding out that the boys in school had like put their faces on a bunch of porn, and there was like 30 girls, and the guys were sharing it all around. And she said that she remembered going to the principal's office, and that yes, she was crying a little when she left. And then as she was walking through the halls, she saw a group of girls all standing, cowering with each other, crying, and a group of guys across the way making fun of them. She's like, and then I stopped crying and I just got mad. And I said to Liz, but for a girl, that's what you do when you're mad. You cry the hardest when you want to tear someone's face off because you got so conditioned to like, don't create a scene, never be violent, never like, you know, like. So the only way I knew how to respond when I would have been a boy and punched someone was to just disappear and cry.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
And there were times even like, I remember this job that I had with my boss, who was kind of a D. Like, to the extent that like one time, just because he thought it was funny in front of a group of people, he pulled out the chair I was going to sit down on and I smashed my ass on the ground, you know, and he laughed hysterically, you know, like, and like when I told him I need to go because my grandma's dying, and he was like, well, how do you know she's dying? And I was like, well, the women in my family have this thing where they always lose a whole bunch of weight right before they go. And my grandma just dropped a ton of weight. And he said to me, I'm sitting there telling her my grandma's dying. He said to me, well, at least there's hope for you someday. And started cracking up. So that's the level of person this is. Yeah.
No.
So those two guys would sometimes make me so angry that I would just have to like leave the building and steam around the place, like scream crying and like mad at myself that I was crying because I'm just angry. But it's like, I'm just so conditioned. Like you just don't know how to get it out any other way except like in your dreams. Maybe, you know?
I know. I kind of wish I had explored more just screaming at people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have not done enough of that in my life.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, when I took that self-defense class, and I only made it halfway through, so I always joke that I learned just enough to really get my ass kicked, like just enough to super piss you off, but not finish you off. But the most important thing she had us do was she's like, every time we kick, every time we punch, you're going to scream like a banshee.
Yeah.
And that was like huge for me, like, because her whole concept of like, look, if someone's even coming near you and you don't like the feel of it, just freaking start screaming. It's their problem and everyone else's problem, what they think. Like, you're protecting you, you know, like, and so I didn't think that I had really taken it in as much as I did. And I might have told this before, but so one day, well, two things happened. One, my ex-boyfriend would always be like, ooh, I'm so scared. Like, you're going to punch my lights out. You know how guys will always make fun of you when you're trying to learn how to defend yourself? Why? I don't know. So one time I was cooking and he came in and like kind of playfully kicked me in the butt and I like flew through the air, spun around in the stance, like screaming like a banshee. And it was instinctive. And he was like, whoa, you know, and I was like, whoa, okay. I'm like starting to get this. And another time I was in Subway with my best friend and there were these like college jock guys behind us saying all this disgusting stuff about her, like loud enough for us to hear. And I was getting more and more heated. And all of a sudden, I just let out the most piercing banshee scream at the top of my lungs in the middle of the subway. I remember everybody froze. And you could just hear one of the ladies behind the counter like drop the knife that she was using. And it was just like dead silent for like a minute. But they shut up and they didn't say another word. And we got outside. My best friend was like, can you just give me like a heads up next time you're going to do that? Because you scared the crap out of me. And I was like, well, I just felt like we didn't have to take that anymore.
In my early 20s, I went to a party thrown by some of my guy friends from high school. It was someone's birthday and they got him a stripper. In my mind, I thought, I'm cool, open-minded, non-judgmental about sex and sex work. This is not a problem. You guys, this turned out to be a problem. She started performing and about 10 minutes in, I felt like I was watching a puppy be beat to death. The room faded to black and all I could see was her, this precious human. I left my body and I started screaming at my friends. One of them shuffled me out the door and that was that. But what I do know now, at least about myself, is when I see pain, I fucking know what it is. And screaming at least gets attention. Aside from screaming, here's what else Dawn has put into practice.
And after that point, like, I used to have to walk to the parking lot at San Francisco State in the dark by myself at like 10 o'clock at night. And there were a lot of rapes on the campus that they would hide. And I'd had some sketchy encounters before. So from that point on, I learned to do things like if I feel like someone's following me to this day, I will turn around and just stare at you walking towards me. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what you think about that. Like, but it's hard. It's scary to turn around and be like, but when you do that, I feel like just that alone is something. But she kind of taught us, like, you just have to like let people know that you're not the victim, like however you have to do that. And sometimes I did stuff like stop and ask a guy, look, I'd like you to walk in front of me the rest of the way. And they'd be like, no, I totally understand. I remember one time we arrived at the elevator for the parking lot at the same time. And I said to the guy, please don't take offense because I'm sure you're a lovely person, but why don't you take this elevator and I'll take the next one? And he was like, oh my God, I totally understand. I have sisters, like, I'm good for you, like,
Right.
So I also learned that there are a lot of men out there that actually like understand, and like are encouraging you to take care of yourself.
Right.
But for some reason, you just end up dating the ones that
I was remembering that when I was in like 8th grade, I was on a school trip. It must have been to Disneyland or something because it was like nighttime. We were driving home late at night. And I was sitting next to my guy friends and I like laid my head down on his lap. That's what it must have been. Either his lap or a pillow or I don't know. Regardless, I was like reclined.
Yep.
And when I woke up, he was feeling me up. And that was when we were like 12.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And I think
got
about
some stories for you.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it just escalates from there, right? But that's the point is that like, why the F did he think that he could do that at 12?
Yeah.
Why had nobody told him that that wasn't okay?
Yeah.
And like, that was, one of my first experiences engaging, with the opposite sex or whatever. And I didn't think it was like abnormal or weird. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel like we just got no training, obviously, about like consent and conversation.
But also,
or
like, the
saying
boys
no
got the
or...
wrong training as well. Like, they got the training of like they would care about if it was their own sister, but other than that, like, get in there and get what you can get all the time.
Well, because the way it was communicated, even in like the church messaging, right? It was like a battle or a war, right? Or like you're winning, win her or whatever, you fight for her, like all of that kind of language.
And the messaging was always that it's all on the woman's shoulder to stop something from happening.
Correct.
And I was like, what? I'm like, because
Well, and I feel like they also didn't mean necessarily me being like, stop fucking touching me. They meant like what I was dressed and like it was probably my fault because I had like laid my head on him. You know what I mean? Like all of these behaviors were my fault.
I mean, even the guy that I was dating when I was 12 and he was 16, which he was a church guy. Yeah, I know. My mom like lost it when she found out. But I was so innocent kind of even still that like the way church would work is we had twice on Sundays. So we'd leave around 11:30 because we had to get out before the Catholics so we could beat them to like Marie Callender's or whatever, or like Sizzler. And so you'd go like either to Sizzler with your family and then go home and do stuff and then come home at church, or you'd go home with a friend from church to their house and then they'd bring you back to church. So you got to hang out with your friends.
Right.
So I was at her house. His sister was my age and I was there hanging out. We were swimming. And then we ate a whole bunch of food and I was really tired. And I laid down on the couch and fell asleep.
Yeah.
And I woke up and he was totally on top of me on my backside, like trying to feel me up. And I just started elbowing and throwing like back kicks and like being like, get the hell off of me, And he was my boyfriend. So it was like, I should have, I guess, been okay with that. But I was like, what? I didn't consent to any of this. Like, what's going on? Like.
So Dawn had some fight instincts at her disposal, but she had to be really smart how to use them in high school.
Yeah, there's always some, but like the biggest one in high school was when the guy bitch slapped me and then he punched my friend's teeth so bad that he killed all her front teeth.
What?
I'll try and make this super short. We got bused into Bakersfield High, which was in the inner city of Bakersfield. So it was like a mixture. It was like 35% like white kids, and then everything else was a mix of African American, Latinx, Latin, whatever. There was all these Asian foreign exchange students that played hacky. It was just kind of like, and then there were all these pregnant moms. Like it was like this crazy, intense scene, and it was very violent. People would get jumped in bathrooms and beat the crap out of for no reason. But I was like one of the honor student gate kids, and like super good kid, but I looked weird. And I don't even know how it started, but I had these girls in my gym class. They hated us because there were just me and one other white girl in the class. And they wouldn't pick on me, but they would always pick on her because she was really tiny. And like, so one day the teacher locked us in a room and was like, okay, play jungle ball. I'll be back in an hour. So jungle ball is volleyball with no rules. So they kept hitting us with the balls. And my friend Lana was like, I swear to God, if she hits me one more time, I'm going to spike it in her face. I was like, please don't do that. Because like our place where we would dress out was so dangerous. Like people would get beat up in there and the lady would just stay behind the cage and not do anything. So sometimes you wouldn't even put your clothes back on because it was too dangerous. You would just go in your sweats to class. And I was like, please don't do that. And that was how it started because she kept spiking the ball in their face. And then the next week we had a substitute. We were playing flag football and they were just taking her out like freaking bloody nail marks down her back. And then trying to get her, they slammed the one like little Asian girl so hard it knocked all her braces off, you know. And so I was getting pretty pissed. And then they decided that they were just going to harass me because I looked weird. There was like a lot of race on race violence at that school. Yeah. Like there would actually be like, we'd get locked into rooms sometimes and stuff kind of. But then everybody would always gang up if it was a white person. Like all the other races were like, great, let's get that person, you know. But it was like, we'd have like cowboys and punkers coming from west and cowboys coming from south just to beat each other up on our property. It was like weird.
Yeah. Okay, it's possible this is all still happening. I don't know. I'm old. But lots of high schools were like this in the 80s and even still in the late 90s. This is Carmelita, who also went to school in California.
My high school was kind of run like a prison in a lot of ways.
My goodness.
You had groups that didn't mix. You had groups that could not be in the same room because there was going to be violence. It was a hectic time in my hometown in the 90s. Very violent, a lot of issues with gang violence.
Come in.
Hi.
Hi. Our friend Liz and my kid Eddie just joined us, so you might hear them pipe in. This is where things at school got really nuts.
So there was this whole kind of thing where like, I don't know how to describe this in a way that doesn't sound weird, but as a white person at school, you had to just try to fade into the background, like in a lot of ways, like, and then people, they would roll in these like big groups of people and they liked kind of pushing the boundaries of how they could intimidate you. Like, so it was like this weird power thing that you would just kind of like let it roll. Right. So, but I got fed up one day because we would park in this one parking lot, and every time I would try to pull in, a group of people would start walking as slow as they possibly could so that we'd be late to class because we were stuck there waiting to get into the parking lot. And one day, I was like senior in high school. I was really late and I just had it. And so I saw them coming. I knew what they were going to do. So I hit the gas just a little bit. And then the leader of the group threw himself against my car to try and act like I hit him. So as we were going around to the parking lot, my friends were like, Dawn, please don't say anything. Don't open your mouth. Don't be sassy. Just don't do anything, you know? And I was like, all right. Because they were all scared. They were always so scared because we were always like getting threatened to be beat up. And they would all ditch me and leave me to get beat up. So I pull in. And this guy was like 6'2", but really wiry and skinny. He came over, opened my car door, stood between the car and me, and said, bitch, I can't believe you tried to run me over. And I was like, what? I didn't. You threw yourself against my car. And he's like, are you fucking stupid or what? You fucking blah, blah. And I was like, well, I did get dropped on my head a lot as a child. Like, that's exactly what I said. And he was like, bitch. And he like hauled back as high as he could. And we called it bitch slap at the time. Bitch slapped me so hard. And I was like exploded in rage. Like I had like exploded out of the car so much that he jumped back. And I was like, did you just hit me? So here's my friend Tess, who can I describe? She's chubby, She has real blonde hair, and she's wearing it in pigtail braids. And she's wearing like a little white lacy dress. And she sees him do that to me. So she like bops over and she's like, hey, what did you just do to my friend? Like, and he's like, get away from me, bitch. You know, and she's like, yeah, but did you just hit my friend? You can't hit my friend. And he starts shoving her. And she's like, don't shove me. And he's all, fuck you, bitch. And he punches her so hard that he killed all 4 front teeth, knocked her braces off, and killed all 4 of her front teeth. Blood is like everywhere. And all the football players, all the jocks, they all watched it go down and no one did a thing, you know? And I was like, oh my God, like I was just like trying to help her, and then they all took off, and we were like, okay, what are we gonna do? Because if we like, there'd been a lot of race violence at the school in the last couple months, and we were like, this is just gonna ratchet it up worse, like, so let's not make a big deal about this, you know, like, so we didn't make a big deal about it.
They didn't make a big deal about it. And all that year, Dawn tried to just roll with the verbal punches that she got in the hallway.
But that was the beginning of the year, and for the whole rest of the year, I constantly got my tires slashed. Like in the winter time, they would chew gum and put it in my keyholes so you can't it would freeze in there, so you can't get the car open.
Right.
That's so annoying.
And they would do stuff to the other girls I was friends with, like they'd slam their locker on their hand when they walk by, or like knock the hat off their head, or push them into the lockers, or like scare them in the bathroom. But they never did it to me, like, because I would stand up to them. And then one day, I was so excited because we went to London when I was in summer of my junior year, and I went to that mod store, and I got all these half black, half white shoes. So I was wearing these black and white go-go boots, and I was walking by the girls from a couple years back who already hated me.
Girls.
Yeah, Essie and Asila were their names. Like, and they're all, bitch, like, what kind of, you know, like, just going off on my shoes. And me, sassy me, I was like, do you like him? Like, we could go shopping together. Like, that's how I would always respond. Like, never any take the bait, you know? And they were like, what? Like, you know, and of course, there go all my friends, all running off and leaving me there with these 3 girls.
You needed better
friends.
friends.
I know. And then they were like, wait, you're the bitch who tried to kill John Ross or whatever his name was. And I was like, okay, first of all, I didn't try to kill him. I didn't even hit him. But sometimes after all this, I wish I had. And they were like, bitch, we're going to stab you. We're going to shank you in the back. You better watch your back because you're going to be dead before the end of the year. And then it was like this constant threats of stabbing me to death and stuff. But apparently it was credible enough that the security was watching me all the time. Like, I didn't know that they were, because they actually thought they might stab me. But I was like, it's high school. Like, nobody's going to stab anybody, you know, like, whatever. Like.
And then she had her breaking point.
So one day, I like lost it because I came out to the car with my sister, who was 2 years younger than me, and carved into my car, like, letters like this big. On one side, it says bitch. On the hood, it says slut in like giant carved letters.
No.
On the other side, it says WHOR, which I was like, I guess it is a whore.
I mean, close.
And on the back, okay, but on the back, it says Crips. Okay, I'd never heard of Crips. Apparently, they were Crips, but I didn't know it was a thing, right? And they had stabbed all 4 tires, and there was gum in the keyholes. And I was like, you know what? That is it. And my sister just started weeping.
God, that's
she was
horrible.
so scared. She started crying, and I was like, that's it. And I like dragged her to the principal's office, and I was like, bang, bang, bang. And I was like, listen, I'm trying to be super cool this whole year. Like, shit just constantly happens, and I just blow it off. But this time, it's gotten too far, and I need you to come out here, and I need you to do something about it, you know? And so I drag him out there to see it, and I was like going off him all. Also, like, WHRE, quite the testament to your school system. You must feel really proud. I was like, and then when I got to the back, I was like, and what did Crips, like, were they trying to write crippled and they couldn't figure out how to fix the end of it? And he started laughing so hard. And he was like, that's not what that means, girl. And I was like, are you laughing right now? Like, you think this is funny? Look at my sister. She's like weeping, you know, like. And I guess like my mom went or they called her in
Well, yeah.
and were like, look, your daughter should change schools. It's too dangerous for her here.
What?
We can't protect her all the time. We had security guards with guns, but they still couldn't protect me. And she's like, no, she's not changing schools. You're going to get your shit together and you're going to make sure that nothing happens to her. You know, like.
That guy from the first story, he went to jail, and not for bitch slapping Dawn.
My friend didn't go to school for 3 months because she had her jaw wired shut.
Oh my gosh.
But we ended up not even have to testify because he punched his pregnant girlfriend. Like, he beat up his pregnant girlfriend before we even, and he wasn't,
that guy was full psycho.
Yeah, because he was in a gang. I didn't even know there were gangs in Bakersfield.
When I was in a practically all-white high school, dudes would meet up in their big trucks after football games to pretend to fight each other. And sometimes they did. And the biggest brawl I was near was one initiated by the Sharps, Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice, who, though I agree with ideologically, were high school punk asses nonetheless. California's Central Valley has historically been an agriculture-based economy, with a lot of rural areas. But Fresno, my hometown, and Bakersfield, where Dawn's from, are basically the two big cities in the region, in between San Francisco in the north and Los Angeles in the south.
I know. So
I didn't know Bakersfield was that bad.
Actually,
I know
Bakersfield
just that's all of this is some Gen X shit that I feel like is not as bad now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's the drug capital of California. It's the drug pass-through of California.
Right.
So you got all your tweaker, meth head, hillbilly crazies.
When you put a large city in the Central Valley,
right,
Yep,
that's what happens.
Look at Stockton.
Yeah. Liz is from Modesto, another mid-sized Central Valley town.
Kids threatening to gang up on you and beat you up after school.
Right. And
That's
getting
so
jumped.
Junior high. That's not high school, that's fucking junior high. At least in my experience. By the time I got to high school, there was none of that.
I mean, it wasn't just threatening. I'm going to say this.
Here's one of those strategies that Dawn learned to use.
I actually would have gotten beat up every time on the spot.
Yeah.
If I had a different way of handling the situation. But I found really quickly that the thing that throws people off the most is being uber polite. They don't understand it. They've never experienced in that scenario. And it throws them so off.
So you learn de-escalation skills real early.
It throws them so off that you could just stroll away where they're like,
yeah, because when they give aggression, they're expecting aggression back, and that's what they want.
Right,
and
totally.
when you don't give them that, it's their dumb brains are all like,
I know, I would just be so polite and use such big words in the nicest possible way because I wasn't scared of them. But I mean, there was a part of me that was like, I could really get my ass kicked here. One time, one friend stayed with me, and I almost regretted that she stayed because these girls from across the street were like, "Hey, bitch!" And it was always me. Even though my other friend, my best friend, looked weird, they would never have touched her. And they came over. They're like, "We're gonna kick your ass," blah blah blah. I was doing my diffusion tactic. She's like, "Girl." Or she's like, "You don't believe I could kill you right now?" And Kimmy goes, "I do believe it because you're killing me right now just with your breath." And I was like, damn it. We might not get out of this one. But again, it was so logical and on point that the girl was just
thrown.
Let us walk away.
Right.
Otherwise, I think I would have gotten my ass
Why do you
kicked.
think that you drew that kind of attention? Was it just that you were different? That you looked different?
Yeah, because all those
you were
things,
tall.
I'm that girl that's hard to forget because I'm chubby, blonde, weird girl. But
Clothes were different, big
my
blonde
clothes
hair.
were weird, big blonde hair.
You dressed
there was
like a mod girl in high school.
a little bit, but mostly garage. Sometimes mod, mostly garage.
How do you describe garage?
It was just what you could find at Goodwill. So a lot of times it would be a checkered black and white skirt and a black sweater or something, you know. But if I could find crazy 60s dresses and stuff.
Oh yeah, you had the crazy colorful dresses too.
Yeah, I would wear a lot of paisley old dresses and crazy stuff like that.
Yeah. So we've heard some of her strategies that work and sometimes don't. Be uber polite, make a silly little self-deprecating comment that throws them off, scream, turn around and make eye contact, wait for another elevator. But after being the victim of violence, there's internal work that you have to do too. And this is actually the piece that haunts Dawn.
And this was like, I think I may have told you this. I really struggled after this of growing up thinking I wasn't racist. Like, I don't have these feelings. Like, I really thought that. And like, this stuff happened and it really like shook me.
Right.
So there was a part of me that I had to deal with, which was like, okay, like, do I have racist feelings now? Because when I would see a group of people that look like that group of people coming, I would be on my guard.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, have I become like a super racist now? Like, and I still struggle with that feeling, you know, of like, am I feeling this way about the group of people coming towards me because of the persona they're projecting, or just because they're this race or that race and I've become a horrible person, you know? So that was my first like deep dive into like trying to like sort that out, you know, like, and I don't have it handled, but you know, like I feel like,
I think anybody that goes through trauma, which is what you just described, has to process feelings like that, right? And it's all about your lizard brain. Like, if you think thoughts about someone that's walking toward you based on your trauma, your lizard brain is like, hello, that's dangerous, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But I finally, where I've come to the space is that like, and I always say this as like a juxtaposition, like after living the sunset, the thing that scares me most is a group of Irish guys super wasted coming towards me, because those dudes are extra crazy. Like, and when I can hear them singing and super drunk, I'm like, I'm just going to move to this area, you know? But it's all based on like these experiences that I have had, you know.
The experiences each of us have create the lens by which we interpret the world. And doing the work of adulthood is evaluating how this lens affects our beliefs and actions, and making conscious decisions about it, not living in the lizard brain. So that presents complex questions rooted in childhood experiences. How can you feel fully in your body when it seems to bring you so much pain, when it's the target of others' judgment or violence? How can you protect yourself while still being soft enough to connect with yourself and others? How do you use the fight or flight mechanism your lizard brain triggers to keep you safe, while logically understanding the biases it contains? So these were the learning moments that shaped Dawn. You have your own you're probably still working through. Some situations we learn to not give a crap about, some we choose to laugh about, and others, we decide to scream.